My wife of 25 years had an emotional affair with her coworker. She had a secret son for 15 years with some other guy and blamed me for everything when I asked for divorce. My wife, 48 female, and I, 50 male, met when we were both in college. At the time, we were just two overworked, underpaid students juggling part-time jobs and full class schedules. I was working a few shifts a week at this little fast food place off campus, grabbing lunch between classes like everyone else. She worked in the coffee shop next door. I first saw her when I stopped in for a sandwich during one of those chaotic afternoons. She was stunning, bright eyes, confident smile, the kind of presence that made you forget where you were for a moment. I remember thinking, damn, I hope I see her again. So, I went back. Again and again. Not even pretending I wasn't hoping to bump into her. And eventually I did. The next time we crossed paths, she actually came up and talked to me. She was warm, easy to talk to, funny in this dry, sarcastic way that completely disarmed me. I asked her out right there. We clicked fast. Within months, we were inseparable. We studied together, worked our shifts, crashed on the couch watching whatever we could stream for free. After a couple years, we got married in a small but beautiful ceremony. Nothing fancy, just friends, family, and a lot of hope for the future. Around the time we met, I was just wrapping up my degree and my part-time job turned into a full-time management offer. The timing was perfect. My now wife still had a couple years of school left, and since she came from a big family that didn't have much to spare, I took on paying her tuition. I never made a big deal about it. It just felt right. She was brilliant, truly. Graduated with honors. I always knew she'd go far, and after a few shaky jobs out of school, she landed a solid position with great pay and benefits. She kept that job for years. It was our anchor while I chased something a little more uncertain. During the early years, when everything was still new and we were figuring life out, we had an incredible life. I'm not saying it was constant, but it was passionate. Wild sometimes. Very adventurous. We were deeply into each other. I had my share of experiences before her, captain of the football team in high school, stayed in shape through college, ran a few half marathons, dated around, but nothing prepared me for her. She was younger than me but more experienced by far. She'd lived more, loved more, partied harder. She'd been through a lot, and she was open about it all from the beginning. A mutual friend even gave me the full backstory. I didn't flinch. If anything, it made her more real to me. She used to tell me, sometimes right after, sometimes just out of the blue, that I was the first guy who really cared about her experience. About making sure she felt seen, satisfied. That meant the world to me. I'm average in most ways, so I always tried to go the extra mile to make sure she knew she was wanted. Needed. Worshipped. Maybe there's a little insecurity in that, sure, but I never wanted her to doubt my devotion or be tempted to find it elsewhere. A few years into the marriage, I took a leap. I decided to start my own sports team. It had always been a dream, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. It wasn't. We bought a big house right around that time too, because why not complicate life a little more? Between our jobs and launching the team, we barely slept. I averaged 4 hours a night for years. No exaggeration. Every penny I earned outside of basic bills went into the team. Meanwhile, her career was taking off, and for a while, she was the breadwinner. There were some tough conversations about money, especially when I stretched us thin, but we weathered it. We always found our way back to each other. She was my best friend, my partner in every sense. She even came to most of the team's events. On the road every weekend, hotel rooms, long drives, rain-soaked bleachers, all of it. Before we had kids, she was there 90% of the time. When she wasn't, I'd be home late, but she never complained. She took it all in stride. When weddings and reunions came up and I couldn't make it, she went solo. I missed a lot, honestly, birthdays, beach trips, holidays. She even went on a few girls-only vacations. I encouraged her to go. She loved the beach, the escape. And we always came back to each other stronger. Then, not long after our 5th wedding anniversary, I was looking for something. Team pictures, I think, photos for a new website or promo flyers. She told me to check the drawers in the spare room, the kind of catch-all space that every house seems to have. I was rummaging through old documents, mismatched cords, half-burnt candles, when I found the envelope. It was full of pictures from her bachelorette party. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who gets jealous easily. We were open with each other. We both had pasts, we both had stories. But something about those photos stopped me. I stood there holding them, flipping through each one slowly. The way she looked in them, the The wild freedom in her eyes, the suggestive poses, the hands on her waist that weren't mine. It hit me in a place I hadn't expected. I had never seen those photos before. Never even heard about that night beyond a few vague references. And suddenly, I was standing there holding evidence of a version of her life that felt hidden. After I found those bachelorette party photos, I remembered just standing there in that spare room, clutching them with a tight jaw and a sinking chest. That last image, her hand around some guy's junk while he stood fully naked in front of her, just burned into my mind like a brand. It wasn't even the act itself that hit me so hard. It was the feeling that I'd been lied to, or at least misled. We'd talked about her party before. She told me about the drinking, the dancing, how her friends pushed her to flirt a bit. Said it was innocent. I didn't press because honestly my own bachelor party had its moments. Hers happened the same night as mine, and I remember being grateful her brothers were there. That gave me some peace of mind. Turned out I should have saved some of that concern for the photos I'd discover years later. When I brought them to her, didn't even wait, just walked straight to her with the envelope. She looked panicked, then guilty. Said she didn't want me to get jealous. That her friends were egging her on, that she was drunk, and it just happened. Swore up and down nothing else went on. And maybe that's true. I want to believe it's true. I did things at my party too, things I told her about right away. The fact that she didn't do the same, though, that stayed with me. Not as some huge betrayal, but as a crack in the foundation. A little gap where doubt could creep in. That was the first time I really realized that she was capable of leaving things out, telling a story that wasn't technically a lie, but wasn't the full truth either. After that, those beach trips she took with her friends started to feel a little foggy. She'd always come back refreshed, happy. And I never had a reason to question her. But now, I wondered. I didn't ask. I didn't want to start digging without knowing what I'd do if I found something. But that seed of doubt? It stuck. Still, we moved forward. We had a good life. Actually, a great life. Over the next few years, things really started to come together. The team was growing, the business side of things was finally turning a profit. For once, it wasn't just passion, it was success. Real success. We waited to have kids until we felt we could give them the life they deserved. And when we finally took that step, it felt right. We had our first child, then another 4 years later. 2 beautiful kids. Our whole world. Between their births, honestly, our sex life was better than it had ever been. Like rediscovering each other all over again. It was adventurous, sometimes downright wild. There was even some internet stuff we dabbled in. She was the star of that, of course. Gorgeous. Confident, unfiltered. It was just us, just private, but still thrilling in a way that made everything feel electric. She asked me to take it all down a few years later, and I did, no questions. That's always been our deal. Mutual respect, full stop. It felt like we were thriving, not just surviving or going through the motions, but really thriving. I was doing TV interviews, getting local awards, radio spots. Nothing national, but enough that strangers would come up and congratulate me at grocery stores. I didn't expect to become a local name, but I'll admit it felt good. Felt earned. I'd put everything into building this team, and it was finally giving back. I thought we were happy. I felt we were happy. But recently, just recently, I've come to realize there was another side to that story. My wife has told me that it was after our second child was born that she started to really resent the sports team. Not just because it took up so much of my time, though it did, but because it became my spotlight. She said she felt left behind. Said people forgot how much she'd done for the team in the beginning, how many nights she stayed up helping me balance finances, how many events she managed behind the scenes, how many of her own goals she'd set aside while I chased mine. I didn't see it at the time. That's on me. I was caught up in the momentum, always chasing the next win, the next event, the next chance to prove myself. I always asked her to come with me. Every time. I never stopped wanting her by my side. But things were different now. We had kids, and dragging 2 little ones to tournaments every weekend wasn't easy. Or maybe she just didn't want it anymore. At the time, I didn't think too hard about it. I chalked it up to parenthood, logistics, growing responsibilities. But now, hearing how she really felt, it hits different. It's strange, realizing in hindsight that your version of the story might not be the only one that mattered. I thought we were a team. I still think we are. But the version of our history I've been carrying around doesn't match hers in some important ways. I saw love, progress, partnership. She saw sacrifice, invisibility, slowly losing herself in my shadow. I don't know what to do with that yet. I've always believed in total honesty, total fidelity. Those were the rules. She said if I ever cheated, it was over. No questions. And I felt the same. We even joked about it sometimes, in that half-serious way couples do. But now, knowing there were moments she didn't tell me the whole truth, knowing she's been quietly harboring resentment for years, it's starting to feel like I've been missing something important. And I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this story than I know. There's more she hasn't told me. Fast forward a few more years, and life threw us another curveball. My wife's father passed away. They were incredibly close. He was her rock, her protector, her biggest supporter. And to be honest, he didn't like me at all when we first started dating. Thought I wasn't serious enough. That I'd never be able to give her the kind of life she deserved. I can't blame him now, looking back. If I had a daughter like her, I'd probably be the same way. Over time, though, we earned each other's respect. I admired him. He was a good man, principled, worked hard his whole life. His death hit her hard, and I did everything I could to be there for her. Not long after he passed, she told me she was quitting her job and going back to school. Said she wanted to follow in his footsteps, do something more meaningful with her life. At first, I was proud, hell inspired. Then the logistics sank in. She wanted to go full-time. That meant I'd be footing the bill for school again, juggling our 2 kids, who were still pretty young at the time, my regular job, and the sports team too. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. I was stretched thin already. But I didn't even hesitate. After everything she had done for me, the sacrifices she made when we were first building the team, I had to return the favor. She took summer classes, night classes, weekends. Whatever she could to finish as fast as possible. And I picked up the slack at home. I learned how to get the kids fed, well, microwave dinners, picked them up from daycare, got them tucked in, and even brought them along to practices and games. Those were hectic days, but weirdly enough, they're some of my favorite memories. The 3 of us, just figuring it out. I felt like a real dad, like I was doing right by them. And it worked. She graduated, got the job she wanted, and I thought, we did it. We really made it through the storm. A couple years after that, we were in such a good place financially that I decided I wanted to give her something back, something special. A real honeymoon. Our first one hadn't been anything to write home about. We couldn't afford much then. But now, we were doing well. I booked a trip to her favorite beach. Just the 2 of us. A full week of sun, ocean, and no kids. It was perfect. She was radiant there, relaxed, smiling, laughing. We made love like we hadn't in years. It felt like we'd found each other again, stripped of the daily chaos. For that week, we weren't mom and dad or co-managers of a household. We were just us again. It felt like a second beginning. But strangely, that trip also marked the start of something different. After we came home, she started pulling away from the team. Even though the kids were older and could have easily come along or stayed with family, she didn't want to travel with us anymore. Said she was tired of always being stuck at home, tired of missing out on life. She started planning beach trips every summer, right in the middle of my season. When I said I couldn't come, she just said, "That's fine. I'm going anyway. You can join if you want." She'd take the kids, sometimes her sister or a cousin. But the message was clear. She was going, with or without me. I didn't believe she was cheating or anything like that. She's not the type. But it hurt. It felt like she was creating a separate life, one that didn't include me anymore. She used to love the team. She was there from the very beginning. Hell, in many ways she helped build it. But now it was like she resented everything it stood for. Like it reminded her of everything she had to give up, so I could chase my dream. Even friends started asking where she was. Why doesn't she come to games anymore? Is everything okay between you two? I didn't have a good answer. Just smiled, nodded, changed the subject. Then, about 2 years ago, she started talking about this new coworker. At first, it was casual, just stories from work, mentioning his name here and there. Then it became a lot. She'd go on about how smart he was, how innovative, how quickly they'd become friends. I found it odd, honestly. She's never been the type to make work friends, especially not male ones. Something in my gut just turned. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt a shift. One day, she tells me about a company event, some big dinner and a show in the city, a few hours away. They were renting a bus, making a whole evening out of it, and spouses were invited. I told her I wanted to go. Truthfully, I went because I wanted to see this guy, see what was really going on. When I met him, it all clicked. He was tall, 6 feet 2 inches, maybe taller, but out of shape, doughy, like he hadn't been active in years. Definitely not the kind of guy she'd usually go for. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only woman in the world. And the way she talked around him, laughed a little too easily, kept throwing him these side glances, it all made my stomach turn. Later that night, I asked her straight up what the deal was. She laughed it off, said I had nothing to worry about. Just look at him, she said. I could never be attracted to someone like that. It should have made me feel better, but it didn't. Something about her tone was too casual, like she was trying too hard to make it sound ridiculous. On the bus ride home, around 1 a.m., we're all exhausted. She turns to me and says, "Can you sit somewhere else? I want to stretch out and sleep." I just stared at her. I was her husband, and she was asking me to sit apart so she could be comfortable alone. I didn't argue. I got up, found a seat nearby. And sure enough, about 3.5 hours into the ride, Mr. Coworker comes strolling down the aisle and plops down next to her. They talk quietly the rest of the ride home. I watched them from my seat, heart pounding, ears buzzing. It wasn't what they were doing, it was what they weren't doing. There was no obvious touching, no flirting. But there was this comfort there. This easy intimacy. Like they'd already talked for hours and hours before, and this was just one more long ride where they'd get to be themselves. Together. I had given her everything. My support, my loyalty, my effort. I stood by her through everything, her father's death, her career change. All of it. And now I was watching her emotionally, physically, maybe even romantically, slide away from me. Piece by piece. Of course I asked what they were talking about, and she says it was just a work project they'd be handling together. Her tone was casual, too casual. Like she'd rehearsed the answer in her head a dozen times. My gut twisted in a way I couldn't ignore, but I didn't have any real proof, just that creeping feeling deep in my bones that something wasn't right. I let it go for the moment, but it stuck with me. I didn't sleep much that night, and it wasn't because of the snoring. For a little while after that trip, things seemed to cool off. They got assigned to different projects, or at least that's what she told me. Maybe it was true. Maybe it wasn't. What was true, though, was that she slowly started pulling away. I don't mean just emotionally. I mean physically. She stopped sleeping in our bed. At first, it was the snoring. She said she just couldn't take it anymore. Fair enough, I know I snore loud enough to wake the dead, but when I offered to sleep in the guest room, thinking she'd want to reclaim our space, she said she was fine on the couch. That was the start of the real unraveling. You'd think after everything we'd been through together, her going back to school, me working my ass off to keep everything afloat, raising kids as a team, we'd be stronger than ever. But instead, I felt like I was slowly being pushed out of my own life. We became strangers living under the same roof, coordinating only through parenting logistics. The intimacy, the connection, the laughter, even the fights that let you know someone still cares, gone. Then the sex stopped. And not just tapered off, stopped like someone slammed the brakes. Cold turkey. Giant red flag. This woman, my wife, who had always been so affectionate, who used to pull me into the bedroom like I was the last man on earth, suddenly didn't want anything to do with me physically. She'd claim her body hurt, or that the kids were still awake, or she wasn't in the mood. Always a reason. Never the same one twice. I brought it up, gently at first, then more directly. I asked if something was wrong. She said I was imagining things. I asked if there was someone else. She got angry, angrier than I expected. Looking back now, I think that was guilt talking. Then about a month ago, it all blew open. That night, I was supposed to be sleeping downstairs. One of the kids had taken over our room with a project, and honestly, it wasn't unusual by then for me to crash on the couch anyway. She used to leave her phone charging downstairs, but over time she'd started taking it to bed with her. That night, for whatever reason, habit, distraction, she left it on the kitchen counter. I noticed it buzzing around midnight. Constantly. I figured it was one of the kids at first. Maybe something wrong, but no. It was Coworker. And that's when I did it. I cracked the passcode. Took a wild guess based on birthdays and anniversaries, and I got in. That phone opened like Pandora's box, and what I found inside made me feel like the floor had dropped out from under me. I stayed up all night. I couldn't stop scrolling. His name lit up message after message, some casual, some flirty, some emotional, some deleted, entire conversations that hinted at more than I could prove. There were missing pieces, gaps in threads that didn't make sense unless you assumed there had been phone calls, private meetings, things that didn't leave a digital trail. But what was left, it was enough. I miss you. I love you. Your hugs are my favorite. You looked so cute today. Hearts, kisses, selfies at work events. Inside jokes. Stuff I hadn't heard or seen from her in years. Things she used to say to me back when we were new and in love. Back when we were us. I read it all in silence, heart pounding, hands shaking. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash and not being able to look away. And still, not a single message about no photos that crossed that line. No hotel bookings. No text like, last night was amazing. If this thing was physical, they were careful, very careful. But emotional? That was undeniable. She was having a full-on emotional affair with this man. And honestly, I don't know which one hurts more. The next day, I was a zombie. I still had a team event to go to, but I barely remember it. I couldn't think straight. I just kept replaying the messages in my head like some twisted film reel. Later that day, I made a mistake, probably a big one, but at the time, I wasn't thinking clearly. I asked our oldest if that coworker was married. I thought he was, and I figured they might know since they'd interned at her company before the lockdown. I made up some flimsy story about seeing his Facebook profile and not seeing a wedding ring. But kids are smart. Mine especially. They sensed something was off. Next thing I know, my wife storms into my office like a tornado. Face red, eyes blazing, fury radiating off of her. "Why are you asking about him?" she demands. "What the hell are you doing going through my phone?" She knew. Instantly. I must have given off a dozen clues without realizing. Maybe it was in the way I looked at her, or how quiet I'd been. Maybe she just knew I knew. And I couldn't even deny it. She was right. I had gone through her phone. I had broken the trust. But only because I knew she had already broken it first. We yelled. We accused. I asked point blank, "Are you in love with him?" She didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession could have been. I don't know where this is going next. I don't know if we're heading toward separation, divorce, or some kind of reluctant truce for the sake of the kids. What I do know is that whatever we had, the love, the connection, the partnership, we lost it somewhere along the way. And maybe that hurts most of all. Not because of the betrayal, or even the coworker. Anyway, after that night, the screaming, the accusations, the look on her face when she realized I'd seen the messages, we went into full damage control mode. Or maybe I did. She went into denial. She did what I've since learned is textbook cheater behavior. Deny, minimize, deflect. It was like watching a movie I already knew the ending to. She admitted only to what I had solid proof of, nothing more. Anything I didn't have a screenshot for? Didn't happen. I'd show her a message with "I love you" and she'd shrug and say, "We just say that as friends." I brought up the dozens of "I miss yous," the emotional intimacy, and she said I was reading too much into it. But the real gut punch was when she turned it all around on me. "You invaded my privacy. If you hadn't made me feel so alone, if you'd been more present at home, if you didn't make me feel like a roommate." Every finger pointed back at me. I wasn't perfect, not even close. But I also wasn't the one whispering "I love you" to a coworker behind my partner's back. I wasn't the one hiding text messages, sneaking calls, gaslighting my spouse. Still, I kept calm. I told her I wasn't accusing her of anything beyond what I could see. I just wanted her to acknowledge how bad it looked. And when she saw I wasn't going to scream or break down, that I was keeping my voice steady and measured, she lost it. She stormed out of the room like I'd slapped her. Since then, I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, Reddit, YouTube, forums. Turns out I'm not alone. There's so many stories like mine, too many. And I realized I'd made plenty of classic mistakes, ignoring red flags, trying to nice my way back into her heart, hoping if I stayed calm she'd come around. But the truth is, I was trying to win back someone who was already halfway out the door. After the blow-up, she locked everything down. Phone passwords changed. Social media accounts scrubbed. Every corner sealed tight. I brought it up, gently. She told me again I'd invaded her privacy, but if I really wanted her phone, she'd give it to me. I just looked at her and said, "You're one of the smartest people I know. If you wanted to hide something from me, I'd never find it." 2 months later, here's where we're at. Part 1. The calm after the storm. We decided to try. Not for the kids, not for appearances, just because we weren't ready to give up. We both said we wanted to try and fix this. And to be fair, some things actually got better. More sex in the last month than the whole previous year, more passion, more connection. It felt like she was actually trying again. Like we were slowly finding our way back to each other. And she gave me full access. Her phone, her accounts, everything. It didn't erase what happened, but it helped. The coworker still texts, but the tone is different now. I see it. Short answers. Work-only responses. No more emojis, no more hearts. It looks like she's trying to keep her distance. Or maybe she wants me to see that she is. Either way, it gave me some peace of mind. Not complete peace, but enough. Then our anniversary came. I went all out. Flowers. Her favorite dessert. Took time off work to show up at her office with everything, just to surprise her. I was hoping for a smile, a hug, maybe even a shared laugh. But when she saw me, she broke down. Completely. She cried so hard she could barely speak. Said she didn't deserve it. Wouldn't stop crying. I asked what was wrong, and she just shook her head. Said, nothing. Just emotional. I'm fine. But she wasn't. And she wouldn't tell me why. It happened again a week later. I did something small, just brought her coffee and left a note, and again, she sobbed. Not happy tears. Not overwhelmed tears. Guilt. It felt like she was trying to atone for something, but couldn't bring herself to say what. Then she hit me with something new. She accused me of tracking her. GPS. I wasn't. I wouldn't. But she came home one day and told me, out of nowhere, that she wanted me to know she was at a lunch with coworkers, in case I saw it on the tracker. She didn't even give me time to respond before walking away. I didn't say anything. I just let her believe it. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if she thinks I've got eyes on her. Keeps her honest. Part 2. The Other Son. And then last night, like the final scene in a movie you didn't know was a sequel, she dropped the biggest bomb yet. She sat me down and told me she has a son. A son she gave up for adoption when she was very young. Long before we met. I had no idea. Not a whisper of it in over a decade together. She said he reached out recently, wants to connect. And not just with her, with our kids. Their half-brother. I sat there stunned. Not angry, not even hurt, just numb. She showed me his picture. I'd never seen him before. Didn't recognize a thing in him. Apparently, he looks like his biological father. No resemblance to her at all. She told me they'd started messaging over social media a while ago, that they've been following each other for some time. They even met at a family wedding last year while I was away for work. She never told me. She talked to her son, this young man she gave birth to and gave up, and she never breathed a word of it. Now she wants to tell her kids. This weekend. She says it's time. Says they deserve to know. That they should meet their brother. And I agree they deserve the truth. But when I gently asked if we could talk about how to approach it, how to help our kids process something this big, she shut me down completely. It's not your decision, she said. He's my son. You're not related. He's their brother. Not yours. That one hurt. Not because I think I have ownership over her past, I don't. But because I thought we were a team. I thought we were rebuilding something together. And in that moment I realized, there are still whole pieces of her life I'm not allowed into. Whole parts of her heart she keeps locked away. So here I am. Still standing. Still trying. But wondering now more than ever if I've just been rebuilding a house that only looks fixed from the outside. If deep down the foundation is still cracked. I don't know what happens next. I'm not even sure she does. But I do know this. I'm tired of guessing where I stand in my own marriage. And I'm not sure how much longer I can keep pretending everything's okay. After a year, here I am. Standing on the other side of it all. To make a very long story short, we're divorced now. It's done. There were a lot of moments where I thought maybe we'd pull through. That we'd find our way back to each other. But in the end, she wouldn't stop contact with him, the other man. The just a friend, who was never just anything. I asked. I begged. I reasoned. I stayed calm. I blew up. I cried. I went numb. And still, she kept him around. She showed no real remorse. Maybe there were moments where it looked like it, but they never lasted. She shifted the blame at every turn, said it was my fault, my distance, my work hours, my paranoia. She never fully came clean, never really looked me in the eye and said, yes, I did this. And I'm sorry. I think, deep down, that was the final nail. Not the affair, not the emotional betrayal, not even the lies, but the refusal to take ownership of any of it. Looking back, I know I made my fair share of mistakes too. I wasn't always present. I worked too much. I ignored signs I shouldn't have. I tried to fix things by smoothing them over instead of facing them head-on. If I could go back and change things, I probably would. But the truth is, I gave it my all. I really did. I tried to save what we had. I fought for it. And when it was clear I was the only one fighting, I walked away. The divorce itself was rough. Brutal, even. I lost a lot. Financially, emotionally, it gutted me. I gave up my retirement savings, a good chunk of what we built together, and a lot more I won't get into. But I got to keep the house. I kept my teams. That mattered to me. They were my anchor through everything. There's something about keeping the walls you built with your own hands and the people who stood by you in the darkest moments. It gave me something to rebuild on. And despite everything I lost, I can honestly say it was worth it. I'm good now. Not perfect. Not healed all the way. There are still days when it creeps in, when a memory punches me in the gut, or I wonder what might have been. But it hurts less each time. That ache? It dulls. And I'm finally enjoying things again. My life. My space. My peace. And through all of this, my brother and his family? They showed up in ways I never expected. They were my lifeline. The nights I couldn't breathe, the days I didn't want to get out of bed, they were there. No judgment. Just presence. Just love. I can't thank them enough. Seriously, thanks, bro. You'll never know how much that meant to me. So that's where I'm at. Not the life I planned. Not the ending I wanted. But maybe the beginning I needed. If anyone reading this has questions or is going through something similar, I'm around. I'll do my best to answer. Just know this. It does get better. Slowly, sometimes painfully, but it does. You're not alone.